Welcome, scientists. This Cornell Notes lecture is on ecosystem roles. Our essential question is, what will happen if a niche is empty in an ecosystem? So keep that question in mind while you are thinking about what notes to take. Make sure your Cornell Notes are ready and set up in your science notebook with the topic at the top, essential question, a space on the left-hand side to write your questions, and then a larger space on the right-hand side to write notes. Let's get started. So, first of all, we're going to be talking about roles for gathering food. Remember back to our niches. Niches are those roles, those jobs that organisms have within an ecosystem. Food chains, in this case, are one of the ways that we can represent our various roles. Food chains are talking about the flow of matter and energy in an ecosystem, and we're going to have another Cornell Notes video all on that topic. The different levels of a food chain are called trophic levels. Troph coming from food or to eat, so these are eating levels. Organisms are lumped into different categories based on the type and variety of food that they eat. Organisms can typically be referred to as generalists or specialists. Generalists are organisms that have a very broad niche. Specialists are a little bit different because they are the exact opposite of generalists. They have a narrow niche. In our food example, if we're talking about a food chain, a specialist would be an organism like a panda bear because it only eats bamboo leaves. It's very, very narrow in the food it can eat. While a grizzly bear would be a generalist because it can eat a wide variety of different food. It can eat salmon, it can eat berries, it can eat roots. It's got a lot of options food-wise. We're going to dive into trophic levels a little bit deeper. So when we talk about trophic levels, we're really talking about the levels in a food chain. At the very bottom of the food chain are our producers. These are our organisms that capture energy from the sun and store it as chemical energy, generally sugar. This is the process of photosynthesis. And producers, 99% of the time, are going to be plants. We've got herbivores, also known as primary consumers, and these organisms eat plants. Carnivores can either eat herbivores, in which case they're secondary consumers because they consume the primary consumer, or they can eat other smaller carnivores, in which case they're considered to be at the top of the food chain and are called tertiary consumers. We do occasionally have a fourth level up there at quaternary consumers, but that's not in every single ecosystem, so we're not going to get into it too much. Omnivores can eat a wide variety of diets. They can eat meat, they can eat plants, they can eat insects, they can eat a lot of different things. And typically we classify omnivores according to the highest trophic level that they eat. So if a species of omnivore like a coyote could eat some roots and berries, that's great, but because it also eats rabbits or other herbivores, they are considered our secondary consumers. We can also divide up our organisms by their activity patterns. Diurnal organisms are those organisms that are awake and active during the daylight hours. Most of our humans are diurnal. Nocturnal animals are the opposite of our diurnal animals, and they are most active during the nighttime. We've got raccoons, bats, all of those kind of creepy crawlies that roam around at night. Those are our nocturnal animals. We've also got this fabulous word called the crepuscular animals. Crepuscular animals are animals that are most active at dawn and dusk. Roles for habitat occupation. Even further are our animals that are adapted to survive in different climates. Obviously, the adaptations of a polar bear are going to be very, very different from the adaptations of a lizard that lives in the Sahara. Very different climates, very different challenges that the organism has to overcome. But we can also have different roles in habitat occupations within the exact same space. An example of this is that we've got a couple species of anal lizards that eat the same food, but they can live on the exact same tree because they occupy differently sized branches. One species is only found on these really large, big, low branches of the trees. Another species is always found on the tree trunks. And then the third one is only found on the small twigs and the fine leaves at the top of the tree. This is an example of what we call resource partitioning, and it's how different species that have the very, very similar niche can survive just by varying where they occur within an ecosystem. That's it. I hope that answered all of your questions, and if it didn't, please go ahead and see me or send me an email. Thanks for listening. As always, scientists, stay curious.